exposed in that situation. And in all the situations, we do know that some civilians were exposed in tests that occurred in Hawaii, possibly in Alaska, and possibly in Florida. And I'm going to turn to Dr. Kilpatrick. Were there any other sites where civilians may have been exposed?
In Vieques.
In Vieques.
Welcome to Midwest Climate Engineering Watch. Today we show you that you are an unsuspecting guinea pig in a mass biological test. Not just one, but many throughout the history and time of this country. Recently, I was on a podcast called Journey to Truth. They are a great team and gave us a platform to discuss climate engineering. Support them if you can. We frequently get asked, why would the government do these programs? Wouldn't they notify the populations that this is going on? The answer is no. And here's some examples. Currently, it is acknowledged that 239 open-air biological tests have been conducted without the knowledge or consent of the U.S. population. Here are some. From the Washington Post, the Army listed 27 times that it tested simulated toxins on public property, including releasing spores in 2 tunnels on a stretch of Pennsylvania Turnpike. In addition to those experiments in the public places, the Army used military personnel and their families for open-air experiments by spraying simulated germs into the air at a number of bases, including Fort Detrick, Maryland, Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and Marine Training School at Quantico, Virginia. Do you think they asked them for the permission to do that? Here is another experiment from Chrome.com. In the Senate subcommittee hearings in 1977, the Army had staged a mock biological attack on San Francisco, secretly spraying the city with Serratia and other agents thought to be harmless. The goal, to see what might happen in a real germ warfare attack. The experiment, which involved blasting a bacterial fog over the entire 49 square mile city from a Navy vessel offshore, was recorded with clinical nonchalance. It was noted that a successful biological warfare attack on this area can be launched from the area, and that effective dosages can be produced over relatively large areas. The Army wrote in its 1951 classified report. The report further says that Brigadier General William S. Augerson, Army Assistant Surgeon General, told the Senate subcommittee that the Army sometimes used human volunteers for biological experiments, but projected them to a degree equaled or exceeded civilian safeguards. We know of no death of permanent injury in any volunteer in this program, Augerson said. Now let's shatter that lie that no death or permanent injury occurred, and let's shatter the fact that they say that these programs were volunteer programs. From the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, suit filed over government test spraying in St. Louis during Cold War. The report says the following. Undisputed is that St. Louis was among several test sites or cities chosen decades ago by government contractors for spraying of zinc cadmium sulfide, a chemical powder mixed with fluorescent particles to allow tracking of dispersal patterns. The spraying was a part of a biological weapons program. The government conceded in 1994, and St. Louis was chosen because its topography was similar to some of the Russian cities the military thought it might have to attack. Martino Taylor's research highlighted studies showing chronic lung and respiratory problems born from exposure to zinc cadmium sulfide. The Army said earlier this month that no health consequences have been found in St. Louis. How could a report be filed if everything was done in secret? It is unknown to the amount of damage done by these sprayings. Other tests that were done on populations were Operation Big Buzz. The government released thousands of mosquitoes known to carry yellow fever into Georgia parks. Government officials disguised themselves as healthcare officials to track the mosquito bites. The Willowbrook experiments, a long study that lasted from 1956 to 1970. The test subjects were children taken from Willowbrook State School in Staten Island, New York. The experiment injected children with experimental drugs without their consent, killing and harming many. And finally, the measles experiment. Experiments involving a measles vaccine were conducted from 1990 to 1991 by the CDC. The doctors wanted to know if they could use it to replace the natural antibodies in babies. To test this, doctors injected thousands of babies in the third world with a drug. The vaccine eventually led to several immune problems in the babies and caused many deaths, although the exact number is unknown. Knowing the drug had this effect, the government still tested on African American and Hispanic babies in Los Angeles. They injected more than 1,500 babies in the United States with the experimental drug. However, the study came to an end when it discovered that the African children were dying at an alarming rate up to 3 years after receiving the vaccinations. The CDC later admitted that the parents were unaware that their children were being injected with experimental drug that had not yet been verified by the FDA. Do you still believe that power structure will ask you for your permission? They didn't stop here at these experiments. They continued. There's 239 verified open-air biological tests. What about COVID? Is that another large-scale experiment done under the guise of public health? Look at how they use people disguised as healthcare experts to gain trust and continue these experiments. At the end of the day, the conclusion of our society is based on your reaction. Do you want to be a guinea pig at our experiment or a human on Earth?